So many religions do not exactly define self or the Atma, or even if they do, I do not exactly know how they do it, but can you please explain these terms in layman terms, the word self and Atma or the Atmic ground which you repeatedly use.
Right.
Can you please explain that?
Okay. Now you see, man has got this consciousness which has got the feeling nature and then the intellect, mano, buddha, ahankara, chitta in Sanskrit they say. Then ahankara is the phenomenon of egoism. I am better than you, I am right and you are wrong, and I deserve to win and you deserve to lose. That kind of a divisive mentality. It's divisive in its whole outlook, and it's got a sense of separation between itself conceived as the body and the adversary conceived as the other. So crudely putting it in very crude terms, you can say it's the force of egoism. In Sanskrit you call it ahankara, but it is the most important force to understand because it has massive repercussions and manifestations not only in the individual's consciousness, which is the microcosmic realm, but it affects all top layers of society. In interreligious conflict, in international conflict, in social conflict between one group and another, everywhere the self is figuring, the self is getting humanity into trouble. So we need to understand the self. It is a feeling of being separate from the rest of the world, it's egoism, it's ahankara. Now I am sure all religions do recognize this. In fact, in the global ethics of the Parliament of the World Religions, they have said that every form of egoism must cease, whether it is at the individual level or at the collective level of religions, of nations and so on. They clearly recognize it. And so the self is a superficial aspect of your inner consciousness. Now as against the superficial aspect, there is a core essence of yourself, which is by and large unknown, which is by and large unrecognized, and which is by and large hidden. Now this is really who you are, and the Hindus call this Atma, and in Islam they have a name for it, Ruh or something they call it. It's the divine essence of man. And in Christianity, a mystic like Bernadette Roberts, Roman Catholic sage, she says that that is the true Christ consciousness. So there must be terms in all the religions for this most definitively, and because we are not professors of comparative religions, we may not know the exact technical vocabulary, but it is the superficial essence of man, the self, and then the core essence of man is the capital self, the Atma.
So self-knowing is entirely an inner work.
Of course it is.
And may I say that it is it's very much concerned with the individual.
Right.
And thereby, as the individual goes through this understanding of the self, so will his understanding expand to at the macrocosm level, at the societal level.
Of course it will. Because society is nothing but the network of relationships between people. Now, right now, relationship between any two human beings, it is based on being deceitful, it is based on hypocrisy, it is based on a divisive mentality, it is based on a sense of separation between yourself and anybody else with whom you are relating. And so long as this default setting in the self, we are born with this default setting, does not change or is not consciously overwritten by man through his spiritual sadhana, humanity has no hope. It's bad news for everybody, but that's the truth. You have to, your identity has to shift from the superficial inner essence of the self to the core inner essence of the Atma, which is your divine self. The shift has to take place, and without the shift taking place, interreligious harmony and international harmony is not achievable, just a utopia.
It's really funny you say that, because You see, I'm a Canadian, and as a Canadian, I know that Canada is very inclusive. It's welcoming of people from all over the world.
Right.
I know for a fact that we've been voted as one of the most livable countries in the world.
Right.
A very peaceful country.
Right.
We have had a bad past and a bad history
Right.
with the native Indians and the
yes.
First Nations people of Canada. But the government has passed several legislations. They've made accommodations to be more inclusive of these peoples.
Right.
But under the skin, somewhere there is lurking this tension between two groups.
Right.
For example, you could have a Christian and a Muslim,
Right.
or a Jew and a Muslim,
Right.
or a native Indian and a Canadian. There's always this tension.
Right.
Do you think that no matter what kind of legislations we pass, there is always that, that it could be superficial?
You see, it's not superficial. It's certainly a reformatory patchwork. We need the reformatory patchwork, because if we don't have that, then there will be more bloody conflicts. So, in order not to have a conflagration of the conflict and the sense of hatred and the sense of division, we need these legislations. So, it's very good that the legislations have been made, but they are not enough, because they are just what you can do on the outside. Now, the real etiology of all these conflicts takes you back to the microcosmic level, where the self is divisive. And unless the divisiveness in the self is addressed through the whole new culture of self-knowing which has come into the world because of the Master Krishnamurti's lifetime work, there is not going to be any fundamental change. There will be cosmetic changes, and there will be changes at the superficial social level, but deep down a conflict is always simmering, because the divisive mentality of the self has not been consciously overwritten, and your identity has not shifted from the self to the Atma. And the problem does not exist once you are in Atmic ground. It does not exist. It exists only so long as you are an inhabitant in the self country. So, a lot of work has to be done. We may not see the fruits of this work in our lifetime. It may take 10 or 20 or 100 generations for humanity to get there, but we should probably plant the seeds following the Master Krishnamurti himself, who planted the seed in human consciousness during his lifetime work.
So, thanks for that answer. I know you're, as we speak, I can understand, you're very passionate about this. May I ask a personal question? What inspired you to get into self-knowing? What was the genesis of your seeking in the spiritual path?
I had a very deep personal crisis in my life. It was a crisis of my identity, who I am, what I am. And because my identity of who I am and what I am was falsified by outer reality. This happens to millions of human beings. Yes. It is just a question of how sensitive you are to the destruction of that identity. Now, when that one identity is actually destroyed, you must be willing to very voluntarily die, as Krishnamurti says. You must die, and then a new self may come into existence. Now, that happened to me because of my mother's very close association with the Master Krishnamurti ever since her 6th year in school. And then when I was about 21 or something, my philosopher friend and master Sri Bhagavan, he initiated me very deeply into Krishnamurti. So my mother and Sri Bhagavan, they initiated me very deeply into these waters, and I did not turn back. And I was just going forward on that road, going wherever it takes me. And
so any other masters that has influenced your work other than J. Krishnamurti and Sri Bhagavan?
There are a number of other masters. I'm perpetually open and receptive, and vulnerable to truth in a myriad forms. I had another massive shift because of the work, lifetime work of Nisargadatta Maharaj, and the great Adi Shankaracharya was another inspirational figure for me. And my master Sri Bhagavan introduced me to the lifetime work of Adi Shankaracharya and the Maharshi, Ramana Maharshi. And I am interested also in the work of the Roman Catholic sage, Bernadette Roberts. I met her, I went to America and I met her. And so I'm perpetually open and taken the whole world. And truth comes to you and the divine comes to you wearing thousands of masks, and you must just allow that to be.